To illustrate how to use parameters in the URL, we are going to be adding a couple of methods to our customer controller. So if you don't have the customer controller open, you're going to go ahead and open it now. And below our index action method, we are going to add a customer number method. And this method is going to use the default ID parameter. And we're going to be returning a string. The name is customer number. And the parameter we're bringing in is a string, and we're calling it ID, which is the default. And so we're just going to tell them their temporary customer number is, and then we'll concatenate in ID. And we'll save this. And we're going to go ahead and run it. And to get to our new action method, we have to adjust our URL. And just kind of a little refresher from back when we were working with HTML in another class and when we dealt with forms. You'll remember when you see data up on the address bar, we are using get processing for that. When we submit forms, you can either use get or post. And let's see, so we want the customer controller, we want the customer number, action method, and then I don't really care what customer number you assign. You can do numbers, letters, a combination of both. Okay, and it should display back. Okay, and you'll notice that we did not have to say ID equals. Okay, we just keyed it in. Okay, and that is because ID is the default. So we're going to close out of here, and now we're going to add another action method where we are going to basically assign a variable name for the parameter. We don't want to use ID. So for this one, we're still making it public because otherwise we can't key it in the URL. So this one is called company, and it's going to retrieve a string. And instead of calling it ID, we're going to call it name. And so we're going to have it return your company. Name is, and we'll concatenate on name. So to enter this parameter, we have to do it a little different than we did ID. So I'm going to save this, and we're going to run it. And we still have to do slash customer, slash, and now we want company. But because we're not using ID, we're using name. We're going to do a question mark, name equals, and then you can just give it whatever company you want. I'm going to do Papa John's Pizza and press enter, and then we can see it. Okay, so if we were using ID, we wouldn't put in the question mark or the name equals, you know, whatever your parameter name was. We would just put a slash and the value. So that's the difference between using the default and actually giving parameters names. Now there is one other little adjustment that we're going to make, because anytime you are pulling in data like this, you do risk injection, so hackers basically. And to prevent that, we are going to run the data through a little utility. And there's actually two utilities you can use. There is one called server.html encode. And then there's one called http utility.html encode. And we are going to be using http utility.html encode. So I'm going to take that utility and I'm going to put it right before the double quote. Then I'm going to enclose this data in parentheses. So it'll end up cleaning all of that. And I'm going to do the same thing down here. And basically, we're just protecting our system. And as far as how it looks when it runs, you should see no difference. So when I save this and run it, it's still going to run the same. So we'll do /customer, and then we'll test the other one as well. This one was company, name equals pets are us. Okay, so both of them run, we just verified that. And then I'm going to close out of here. Now you may notice when we do that, we aren't getting the nice menu system. And that is because we are not running these through the views. If we wanted to run these through the views, then we would probably bring in the data, but store it in the view bag, okay, and pass it to the views that way, but we would still want to clean it. Okay, so for customer number, we want to run it through a view. We would say view bag dot message equals and we're getting a little error for a couple reasons. This now needs to be an action result. And we also need to return a view. And we're going to go ahead and create a view for this. We'll just right click on customer number and add a view. View name customer number is fine. We do not have a model. We will go ahead and use the layout page, and we're going to click on add. And let's see, we've got a little title here, customer number. And then if we want to pull in that message, we would just use the razor symbol here and use viewbag.message. And we can save it. And then we can run it, but we don't really want to run it from here because we don't have a message yet. So let's go ahead and run it from here, from customer controller. And then we will say customer / customer number. That looks fine. Let's press enter. And it has now routed us to the view. And we have the menus now. So at this point, you can stop the running app because we are going to continue making modifications.